BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you're new to me and it's the first time you're seeing my face, hello. Welcome to my home. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening today. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in, the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have a book recommendations video, and it is all about witches. Yeah. Who doesn't love a good witchy story in the spooky season? I know I do. That's why I have 8 recommendations for you guys. So without further ado, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's see what witchy books have cast a spell on me. All right. So before we get into this, I do want to make a big shout out to my witchy book recommendation collab buddies. And they are Becky over at Beck X Reads, who's actually the one who invited me to be part of this collab. So thank you, Becky, for including me in this. I hope you enjoy my recs just as much as I enjoy watching you. We also have Issa at Fun Fantasy Books, Kaylani at Kaylani Simply Me, Kristen at Kristen Crave Books, and Laura at A Book Circus. I will link all of those lovely ladies in the down box below, so you can go check out their channels. If you're not familiar with them, please go check them out. They are all wonderful. They give great recommendations, and they have awesome channels, and I love their personalities, and I think you will like them too. So, when I was coming up with these books, I actually had to dig a little bit. I had to dig. I'm not even gonna lie about it. And so I have got quite a span of books here that span genres. So that's actually how I'm going to be recommending them based off of. And we're going to start with my classic. And my classic witch recommendation is Arthur Miller's The Crucible. This is the play that he wrote in 1953. It is his commentary on the Senator McCarthy witch hunt trials for the anti-communist movement. And I picked this book because it is about the Salem witch trials. Yes, it's symbolic. Yes, but it's set in Puritan times during the Salem witch trials. It follows that historical time frame pretty much down to the T, and just the story itself is so well done. That is one of the reasons why it's taught in schools still to this day. This is actually where I was introduced to it, was in high school. This is actually my original high school copy. I kept it because I liked it so much. But I wanted to include it in this one because it was one of the first real witchy books that I read, and it's always stuck with me. I've always come back to it. It's one of my favorite plays to go see. I've seen it 3 times on stage, and also the film rendition of it starring Winona Ryder, and I can't think of the actor's name. It's fucking fantastic. Just the soliloquy by John Proctor when he won't sign his name to falsify that he's a witch to save his own life is just, it's one of the most moving soliloquies I've seen on stage, and it's so poignant. It's so beautiful. I highly recommend this one. If you like classics, if you like plays, I think you'll have a good time with this spooky season. So I'm gonna try to keep them all lined up here, but I don't know if I'll be able to do that. So we're gonna try. The next genre I have is historical fiction. And the first one I have is Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. When this came out, I knew immediately that I wanted to read it because this is Suffragette with witches. I am a women's history major, so one of the major things that we study in women's history is the suffragette movement. And I just devoured this. I love this. This is about 3 witches, or 3 sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna. They join the suffragettes in New Salem, and they begin to pursue the forgotten ways to try to help progress the women's movement to get what they want. These are the witches. These are the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn. That's essentially what this book is about, and it's so awesome. Oh my God, this book. When I bought this book, this is the book that made me really hardcore decide to have my book club with my fellow book friends, my Red Witch and Bitchin' book club. This was originally supposed to be the first installment, but Cassie came up with Touch of Darkness, and I was like, that sounds a lot cooler. Let's go with that. And I wanted them to join me, so I went along with it. But this was the second book, and I devoured this. I just love this. I love this so much. It was so good, and I freaking loved it, and I cannot speak highly enough about it. It was 5 stars. It does start off a little slow, but the way they encompass the witch elements is so unique to the history of the women's suffragette movement that it could have really happened. And I love that. I love that. And also, as a history major, the history in here was on point. I thoroughly approved of it. I liked it. I had a great time with it. This is definitely one, if you like historical fiction, but you want a little spooky vibe, here you go. And we do have a very, very minute bit of romance, but this book doesn't really focus on the romance. It's more on the political machinations of the women's suffragette movement. And then you throw some witches in there. Good times. The next book I have here is another historical fiction, and that is The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. Now, this is about Agrabota, who was the wife of Loki. And this is her story from her original burning to her actual death. So it's a whole lifetime. And it's such a moving story of her and the way she developed her family and included Loki. Now, mind you, I was a little scared of this book. I was. Because I didn't know anything about Norse mythology. At least I thought I knew stuff, and apparently I didn't, because when I got to her children, I was like, what? She birthed a what? I'm sorry. One more time. She birthed a wolf and a snake. Cool. I'm scared of this bitch now. But once I got past that, this story just snuck up on me. I wasn't going to give this the 5-star that I gave it. But by the end of the book, I couldn't get it out of my head. I was just like, this book came out of fucking nowhere. And it wrapped this nice, big ass pink bow around this really, really nicely well done, well written package. And this is actually a debut novel. And when she comes out with another one, I do plan on picking it up. But this is definitely a good time. If you like Norse mythology, if you like the idea of Loki, now we're not talking Loki from Marvel, just so you know, it's not that. Sorry. If you're a Tom Hiddleston fan, this is not the same Loki. All right. Hate to break your bubble on that one, but this is a good time, and I do recommend this highly. I had a great time with this one, and it's not the traditional witchy vibe. It's definitely the kooky witchy vibe. Not the funny kooky, but the kind of, you're kind of scary, like Hansel and Gretel's kind of scary witch, but then she turns out to be like the coolest witch ever. Yeah. That's this chick. My next genre I have is YA, and I almost forgot about this when I was coming up with this list, and that is Susan Dennard's Truth Witch. This is the first installment to the Witchland series, and when I walked by my bookshelf and I saw it, I'm like, how the fuck is this not my list? This thing was 5 stars for me. This thing was excellent. We follow Safia, I think is how you say her name, and Isulet. Safia is a truth witch, so she can identify between the difference between truth and a lie, which is extremely coveted power in her realm. And Isuet is a thread witch, so she can see how people are connected, the threads that connect them. The only threads she can't see are the ones that connect to her. And the beautiful thing I love about this book is it's not the romance. It's not the action, although it's there. The romance is there. The action is there. The political intrigue, it's there. What I love about this book is the friendship between Isulet and Safia, that sisterhood, that coven that they're forming. It's so well done. It is beautiful, and I freaking adored it. It is the thing that stuck with me the most in this book. I was on the edge of my seat for most of this book, but that friendship just, it's so pure. It's so true. It's so there. Isuet's not high class. Safia is, and they just form this most beautiful picture, and it's so well done. So if you're looking for a witchy element book on the coven side, this is a good one to pick up. I really, really enjoyed this a lot. The next genre I have here is romance. And the first romance I have is The Excess by Erin Sterling. This is a recent read for me. We follow Vivian and Reese. Vivian and Reese have a 3-month summer romance. It's super fun, casual, pretty steamy. And Reese ruins it by saying that he has to go back home to Wales, where he's from, and end his betrothal. And Vivian's like, you have to end your what? I'm sorry, you have to end your what? No, you didn't say that. She makes up a few words, throws his pants in his face, and storms the fuck out. And she goes out with her cousin, and, well, Vivian, her cousin, and Reese are all witches. So Vivian gets a little tanked, gets a little drunk, and decides to say, let's curse the bastard. And they do. And they don't think the curse is going to stick because it's stupid, silly things. Personally, I don't think cursing him to never being able to find the clitoris is stupid or silly, because that's just rude. That was a rude element in this book. But luckily, that's not the part of the curse that stuck. Yeah, part of the curse that stuck. Yes, some of this curse actually did stick. And 9 years later, we find out exactly which part did stick. And we are in for a rom-com. This thing is funny. It is sweet. It is kind of dramatic. But the way that they handle it, it's not too serious. But there are very serious elements in this book. And it's a good time. I gave this 4 stars. So if you're looking for a very quick, fun rom-com with some fun witchy elements, this is a good one. The next romance I have is a little bit spicier than, actually it's the spiciest book on here because it's this bad boy. This is Lifeblood by Amara Ray. This is the first installment in the Mortal Coven series. I just recently finished reading this, and I finished this thing in a day. I gave this thing 5 stars. Colette and Makai have rent-free scenes that live in my head. This thing was so hot, I was sopping wet after reading this book. Oh my god. Oh my god, it was so fucking good. So we have Colette, who is a life witch, and she is a hybrid. So she's born of a witch mother and a warlock father. And so was everybody in her coven. They're all hybrids of some sort. But being a life witch, she doesn't really seem to have a lot of power in the beginning. She doesn't really seem like she can do much except secure this wall around her coven. But the way her coven treats her, they envelop her, they respect her, they take care of her, they watch over her. Makai, however, is a hybrid warlock. And warlocks in this world that Amara Ray has created, they don't get to stay with where they were born. When a warlock comes of age, they need to go find their clan. And Makai is trying out this clan that he is currently with. And he is a torturer by trade and a sadist by choice. This clan orchestrates a kidnapping of Colette and leaves Colette to Makai to get the answers they need to destroy this hybrid coven. And Makai, during one of their sessions, some blood is transferred and they find out that they are fated mates. So we have not only blood play in this, we have fated mate tropes, we have torture, we have murder, we have all the triggers, okay? We got them all. This book has so many triggers. We have a trigger warning page in the beginning of this book, okay? It was awesome. Now, however, I want to point out that this fated mates, because a lot of people when they hear fated mates, they're like, oh, well, it's fated mates, so obviously, you know, that's how the romance is going to be. There's like, oh, they're supposed to be in love, so it's automatically they're in love. No, there was no insta about this at all. Absolutely none. They found out they're fated mates. The only thing that insta clicked was this protection, and that was more on Makai's side, not so much on Colette's. The love, the intimacy, the sex, all consensual, all built, all you see in this book, and it's so fucking good. And the sex scenes, when I say I was dripping wet, I'm not kidding. I needed a few minutes or maybe an hour to myself. Yep. It was a good time. This book's a good time. I loved it. I bought the rest of the series the next day after I finished it. And I plan on picking up the rest of the series very, very soon. Highly recommend this one. If you don't pick up a single recommendation out of this video, pick this one up. You will not regret this one. This is fucking amazing. 5 stars all the way. All right, I do not think I can fit this. We'll just move it up here so you'll kind of see it. There we go. The next recommendation, so we're going from super, super spicy to middle grade, and that is the Chronicles of Narnia's edition of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is technically the second in the series. The Magician's Nephew is the first, but you do not have to read The Magician's Nephew to understand The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The Magician's Nephew's premise is really just to show you how the wardrobe got there. I grew up reading the Chronicles of Narnia. It was one of the first fantasy series I ever read, and it's so well loved. It's so well known. There's been, I think, 2 films made about it, and yes, we do have a witch in it. She is an ice witch, and she fights Aslan, and it's just, oh, I love her. I love her. She was one of the first villains I ever fell in love with. I did. I loved her. And I actually just recently reread A Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe earlier this year, and it reminded me how much I love this series, so I really need to finish this thing. But yes, I highly recommend The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe if you're wanting a very, very easy, very, very fun, very, very childlike story, or if you have children and you want to read something witchy to them before bed. The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe is definitely one that is very worth the time, and it's a great bedtime story. I read it to my own daughter when she was little. And the last book I have here on my recommendations list is one that's very popular, but not for the book. It is Wicked by Gregory Maguire, the first installment in the Wicked Years series. This is the source material for the hit Broadway show Wicked. This is the story of Elphaba. Elphaba is the actual name of the Wicked Witch of the West, named after L. Frank Baum. Elphaba, the sound of his initials. Little factoid for you guys. The complete title of this book is Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. And when I mean life and times, I mean that. This is a life. It is from start to finish. It starts before she's born and it ends when she dies. All right? If you were a fan of Wizard of Oz and you read this book, it will take everything you love about Wizard of Oz, everything you know about it, everything you think, and turn it on its head, split it down the middle, open it, eviscerate it, and then hand it back to you. This book completely revises the story. It rewrites the story of Wizard of Oz. So if you're a fan of that story and you never want it ruined, don't read this book. But if you want to know the real story, you want to read this book. This thing was excellent. I read this years ago and I actually have a full book review on it and I will link it down below. Now, that was one of my very first reviews I did when I first started my channel back in 2016. So you're going to see a very young Jackie and a very inexperienced reviewer. But I said something at the end of that review and it still holds true. As much as I love this book drove me mad because Gregory Maguire, sorry. What he does is there are points in the time where you feel like you're eavesdropping and you feel guilty about it. And it pissed me off. It still pisses me off to this day. But at the same time, I couldn't take my eyes off the story. And at the very end, after reading the whole thing through, I knew I still loved the musical more than the source material. Because the musical gave me the ending that I wanted. Gave me that happy ending that villains don't get. This gave me the truth. I said at the end of my review, and it was probably the most poignant things I've ever said about this book. If you want a really unique, interesting story, and when I mean story, I mean a lifetime, this is definitely the book for you. I highly recommend this one. But if you are a big fan of the musical, go in thinking this. The musical is the bare bones of this book. If you were to break this book into an outline, the musical is the big Roman numerals. If you've never seen the musical, then don't worry about it. Go into the book, you'll have a great fucking time. But if you are a fan of the musical like I am, you cannot read this book through the eyes of the musical. You have to take a step back or you will lose the beauty of this book and you will lose so much of her story. So, those are my witchy recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you choose to read any of these, please let me know. I would love to know if you picked up any of these. And again, my Wicked review will be linked down below along with the card over here in the corner. And that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you have a safe Halloween season and a safe spooky season. And if you go out riding on your broom, just watch out for other drivers, okay? I'll see you guys later. Bye.